بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us all the sincere intentions for His sake. Al-Masjid al-AqSaa, it has a praised status, it has a high rank. This masjid was first built by the order of Allah by Sayyiduna Adam, عليه السلام. Sayyiduna Adam, عليه السلام, had first built the Kaaba. And then he built al-Masjid al-Haram in Mecca. Then 40 years later, he built, by the order of Allah, al-Masjid al-AqSaa. This means that he set the boundaries for al-Masjid al-AqSaa. This masjid itself, it is an area that is larger than what some people think. This masjid contains the two structures, the two buildings that are known as al-Masjid al-Qibli and Masjid Qubbat al-Sakhra. So the one that you see with the golden dome, that is a masjid, that is a structure, that is a building that is inside the wider al-Masjid al-AqSaa. Likewise, al-Masjid al-Qibli, it is a building, it is a structure that is inside the wider boundaries of al-Masjid al-AqSaa. In the past, these two buildings, al-Masjid al-Qibli and al-Masjid al-AqSaa and al-Masjid Qubbat al-Sakhra, they had not been erected. But later on, they were built due to certain events, certain occurrences. So, just so that we all understand, the Masjid al-Qibli and Masjid Qubbat al-Sakhra, you see that there are the wells, the areas where people perform the wudu, there are trees, there are stairs. All of that is actually inside al-Masjid al-AqSaa. The scholars, they used to explain this in a different way. They used to say that whenever you enter a masjid, then to honor the masjid for the sake of Allah, what do you do? Other than al-Masjid al-Haram, when you enter a masjid, what do? You pray Tahiyyat al-Masjid. You pray 2 rak'ahs of the nafil prayer, 2 rak'ahs of the optional prayer. And they said that if you go to al-Masjid al-AqSaa and you were to pray this within that larger area, you pray where the trees are, you pray where the stairs are, you pray at what's considered outside the masjid with the golden dome, then you will be considered to have prayed Tahiyyat al-Masjid, the 2 rak'ahs of the masjid inside al-Masjid al-AqSaa. So remember, these boundaries were set by Prophet Aadam, عليه السلام, by the order of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Al-Masjid al-Qibli, it is the one that has the grayish dome. It is here that it is mentioned that the Prophet stood, our Prophet Muhammad, عليه الصلاة والسلام, when he went to Bayt al-Maqdis, when he went to al-Masjid al-AqSaa on the night journey, al-Isra. It is there that Jibreel alayhi salam instructed him to lead the prophets in prayer. So if you look at that image that you will see, you will find that the Prophet ﷺ was said to have stood where the masjid is that has a grayish dome. That masjid actually has, that building is said to have a capacity of about 5,000 people. And that compared to the wider al-Masjid al-AqSaa itself is quite small. So approximately 124,000 prophets, they stood and prayed behind the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As for the musalla, the erected building that has the golden dome, then here there used to be rocks, and in this place, after the Prophet led the prayer sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he led the prophets in prayer. Jibreel alayhi salam took him to that part of al-Masjid al-AqSaa, and it is there then that he ascended onto those rocks, and then from there onto the mirqat. So as soon as the Prophet did that sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that is where al-Isra came to an end, because the miracle is al-Isra wal-Mi'raj. Al-Isra is the night journey on the earth that the Prophet ﷺ went upon on the back of an animal from paradise, which is called the Buraq. So Al-Isra was on the Buraq, on the earth, and it started in Makkah al-Mukarramah. He went to different places ﷺ until he ended up in Bayt al-Maqdis, and then when he got to al-Masjid al-AqSaa, Jibreel alayhi salam punctured a hole in the wall with his finger. It shows the strength of the angel Jibreel. And there the Prophet tied his animal, alayhi salatu wassalam, this buraq. Then he entered al-Masjid al-Qibli and was instructed by Jibreel alayhi salam to lead the prophets in prayer, which he did. Then after that, they went towards now where the golden dome is. When he got there, alayhi salatu wassalam, and ascended onto the rocks, remember the building wasn't there, that building. So when he ascended those rocks, he then stepped onto the mirqat. The mirqat is something that is like stairs that a person would ascend, would go up. And the Prophet did that, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, until he reached the first sky. So the journey on the buraq, it was on the earth. As for going to the first sky and the second sky and so on, this was not on the buraq. The Prophet did that alayhi salatu wassalam via this mirqat. So then, to remember that, the Muslims built this structure with the golden dome, under which there are those rocks, as-sakhra, from where the Prophet ascended sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So that's why it's called Masjidu Qubbati Sakhra. Masjidu Qubbati Sakhra. And if you go inside, you can even see the place from where the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam ascended. So al-Masjid al-AqSaa, it has many different names. It has, some scholars mention 17 different names. So it's known as al-Masjid al-AqSaa. And al-AqSaa, it refers to being far away. So in Arabic you have al-Qasi, someone, for example, or something who's far, and ad-Dani. Al-Qasi and ad-Dani. Someone far away, al-Qasi, and someone danin or ad-Dani, close. So the superlative, which is like the most, or the closest, or the furthest, is this. You have al-AqSaa, which is the furthest away, and al-Adna. So the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam referred to this masjid as al-Masjid al-AqSaa, the furthest masjid away. And Allah revealed al-Masjid al-AqSaa in the Quran. The reason for this is that when Adam alayhi salam built al-Masjid al-Haram, and then 40 years later, he went to Bayt al-Maqdis and built, by the order of Allah, al-Masjid al-AqSaa. It was the furthest place from al-Masjid al-Haram, from Mecca, where there was a masjid. So it was the furthest masjid away from al-Masjid al-Haram in Mecca, and the furthest masjid then was known as al-Masjid al-AqSaa, the furthest masjid. So that's what some scholars say about the name. Some scholars said that it means that it is the exalted masjid, the purified masjid. Also, it's important that we all know and remind each other that some of the scholars said, al-ardu la tuqaddisu ahlaha. Al-ardu la tuqaddisu ahlaha, which means that a land does not by necessity sanctify its people. Just because a land is blessed, just because there's an area that's blessed, then this does not necessarily mean now that those who are in control of that land, they must be guided and pious. So al-ardu la tuqaddisu ahlaha. So today, as Muslims, we know in whose control these al-Masjid al-AqSaa actually is. And like that, there are many other examples. So that's an important point to remember. Likewise, one of the names is Baytul Maqdis. Baytul Maqdis sometimes is used for Jerusalem itself. In the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this area, or this city, if you will, that's called Jerusalem, it was not known as Jerusalem. The Prophet mentioned it, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but with a different name. Do you know what the name was? Does anybody know? It starts with a Hamza, or it starts with an I, or an E. No. Elia. It is known as Elia. And this is actually a name that the Romans had given to it. Elia, or Elia, also some of them said. So, Baytul Maqdis was also one of its names, which means that it is a pure, blessed, and purified place. Allah gave it a high rank, so that it's a place that a person would go to, and because they go there, because of the blessings there, inshallah, they would be purified of their sins. They would work, they would learn, they would practice, and then they would be forgiven of their sins. So far we have al-Masjid al-AqSaa, and we have Baytul Maqdis. Also, some scholars called it Baytul Muqaddas. Bayt al-Muqaddas, which means also that it is a purified place. Okay, so far we have al-Masjid al-AqSaa, and the second name is, I heard a bit of a murmur, I don't know. Al-Masjid al-AqSaa and Baytul Maqdis. And the third one is Baytul, that's the same thing, isn't it? Say Maqdis again. Bayt al-Maqdis and Baytul Muqaddas. Or al-Baytul Muqaddas. So Maqdis, or al-Maqdis and al-Muqaddas. Likewise, they called it al-Quds. Al-Quds and al-Qudus. Some of them called it al-Qudus, which means the blessed land. And it truly is a blessed land. The lands of Ash-Sham in general are blessed. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Innal malaikata basitatun ajnihataha ala bilad ash-Sham." The angels have their wings outstretched over the lands of Ash-Sham. Ash-Sham includes Syria, all of Syria. It includes Lebanon, Jordan. It includes, what else? Palestine. It includes a part of Iraq to the north, the northeast. And it includes a part of Egypt, also the north of Egypt. And it also includes a part of Turkey. So these areas in the past were known as the lands of Asham. And the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam, that the angels have their wings outstretched, spread out over the lands of Asham. This means that there are a lot of blessings there. Prophet Musa alayhi salam, he knew about the merit of Bayt al-Maqdis, of what is known as Jerusalem today. He knew about the blessed land that was there. Allah referred to this land in the Quran by revealing al-Ardul Muqaddasa, the sanctified land, the blessed land. Musa alayhi salam hoped that he would die there. Musa alayhi salam was engaging in al-jihad at that time. He was fighting for the sake of Allah at that time. Even at that time, these lands were being occupied by some unjust people. So Prophet Musa alayhi salam asked Allah Ta'ala, so highlighting the merit of this blessed land, he said, Rabbi adnini min al-ardi al-muqaddasata. He said, oh Allah, grant me my death close to the blessed land, ramyatan bihajar. He hoped that Allah would grant him death in the blessed lands, a stone's throw at least away, because he was far away at the time when he made this dua. So he hoped to attain the blessings of being buried in this land. In the end, he wasn't buried in Bayt al-Maqdis, but he was buried, you could say, close by. In Ariha, also known as Jericho, there are mountains towards the east, after which you would find Bayt al-Maqdis. So he was in the area, let's say, close. And he was buried in Asham. And the Prophet ﷺ said that if I was there, then I would show you. If I was there, then I would show you where his grave actually is. So this land, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala revealed about it, mentioned it in many of the ayahs of the Quran. Allah revealed, Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-AqSaa alladhi barakna hawlahu. Allah revealed that Allah enabled Prophet Muhammad, his slave, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and took him from al-Masjid al-Haram in the night. Al-Masjid al-Haram is where? Mecca. From al-Masjid al-Haram, which is in Mecca, to, Allah took the Prophet to, alayhi salatu wassalam, al-Masjid al-AqSaa. Alladhi, Allah revealed, barakna hawlahu, the land around which, so the land around which, i.e. around al-Masjid al-AqSaa, he blessed. Allah made it blessed. Al-Hafidh al-Suyuti, he said that had there been nothing else revealed about al-Masjid al-AqSaa, nothing, had the Prophet not mentioned anything else about al-Masjid al-AqSaa, and had the Quran not mentioned al-Masjid al-AqSaa in any way other than this, then this would have been enough. Just this, that Allah revealed that al-Masjid al-AqSaa was a place that the Prophet was taken to, alayhi salatu wassalam, and it is the place that around it there are blessings. Al-Hafidh al-Suyuti said, إِذَا بُورِكَ حَوْلَهَا إذا بورك حول المسجد إذا بورك حوله فالبركة فيه مضاعفة. That if the land around al-Masjid al-AqSaa is blessed, then al-Masjid al-AqSaa itself, its blessings are multiplied. There are many more blessings in it than around it. He said, and Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala took the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam from al-Masjid al-AqSaa to the skies to show the Prophet the great signs of the power of Allah. And As-Suyuti says that had Allah willed, then Allah could have taken Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam from al-Masjid al-Haram in Mecca to the sky, because the route to the skies from Mecca is similar to the route to the skies from al-Masjid al-AqSaa, because it's up. So Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala eternally willed that the Prophet would take this route to al-Masjid al-AqSaa to show that al-Masjid al-AqSaa is a very, very, very blessed place. Al-Masjid al-AqSaa, we said, is also called Baytul Maqdis and Baytul Muqaddas and Al-Quds and Al-Qudus. MashaAllah, you got them all. MashaAllah. And what did they used to refer to it as in the Prophet's time? Alayhi salatu wassalam. Ilya. Ilya or Ilya. So, Al-Masjid al-AqSaa, sometimes is also referred to, as we said, Baytul Maqdis. So, in these areas, if you look at Asham again, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, part of Egypt, part of Iraq, and a part of Turkey, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that there are 40 special people among the pious people who inhabit the lands of Asham. Whenever one of them passes away, then another pious Muslim takes his place. And these, according to this narration, are only in these lands. So Asham is a very special place. And the companions, they acknowledged that too. The Prophet made dua for Asham. One of the companions who came from Asham, he asked the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, saying, Ya Rasulullah, barik lana fi shamina. Barik lana fi shamina. Barik lana fi shamina. Ask Allah to bless Asham. These were the lands where a lot of revelation came. A lot of revelation. This is the land, Asham, and particularly what's known today as Palestine, in which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala revealed the good news to Zakaria alayhi salam. Zakaria alayhi salam would pray in al-Masjid al-AqSaa. He would teach the scholars. Imagine learning from a prophet. He would teach the scholars in al-Masjid al-AqSaa. It was in Bayt al-Maqdis that the Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam, when he became very elderly, he was past his 90s, and his wife also. He asked Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant him a child. And while he was in his mihrab, while he was praying, he heard the angels in Bayt al-Maqdis. He heard the angels calling out to him, giving him the good news that his wife will conceive a child, Yahya alayhi salam. It is in Bayt al-Maqdis also that Yahya alayhi salam was born. It is in Bayt al-Maqdis that a few thousand years before that, Prophet Dawood alayhi salam would recite az-Zabur in his beautiful voice, and in which his voice he would say Subhanallah, and the birds, they would say Subhanallah with him from Bayt al-Maqdis, and the mountains around that area, they would say Subhanallah also with him. It is in Bayt al-Maqdis that the prophets would slaughter animals for the sake of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. It is to Bayt al-Maqdis that the angels would descend, and there are many hadiths about the amount of angels that descend to Bayt al-Maqdis every single day. It is in Bayt al-Maqdis that Angel Jibreel alayhi salam took the form of a young man and came to Lady Maryam and informed her, gave her the glad tidings of a son without her having a husband or without having any man close to her. It is in Bayt al-Maqdis that the extraordinary matter occurred for Lady Maryam. While she was in or close to, she was actually inside al-Masjid al-AqSaa, Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam had built a chamber for her. And there it is that this extraordinary matter occurred, that she would have in her chamber, without anybody bringing it to her, she would have the fruits of winter while it was summer. And in the winter, she would have the fruits of summer without anybody bringing that to her. That took place in al-Masjid al-AqSaa. Likewise, Prophet Isa alayhi salam was born in and around this area. And then she brought him to al-Masjid al-AqSaa and she raised him inside al-Masjid al-AqSaa, Prophet Isa alayhi salam. Likewise, Sulaiman alayhi salam ruled and would sit in a part of al-Masjid al-AqSaa. He would sit on his throne and he would give religious verdicts to the people. He would advise the people. Before him, his father, Prophet Dawood alayhi salam, he ruled over the people from al-Masjid al-AqSaa. Yaqub alayhi salam was also in this area, Bayt al-Maqdis. Yusuf alayhi salam was raised in this area. Likewise, his other brothers. There are many things that happened in and around this area. This area is considered very blessed. Something to note is that despite it being very blessed, which it of course is, it is not better than Mecca and al-Medina. Mecca was and is the most beloved city to the heart of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wassalam. He said that. He said, were it not for the migration, were it not for the people trying to get me to leave Mecca, I would never have left you. He said that addressing Mecca. But he also loved al-Medina, even then Mecca is better. The Prophet ﷺ made dua and he said, Ya Allah, grant al-Medina twice the amount of blessings that are in Mecca. But Mecca is better. The Prophet ﷺ lived there for about 53 years. And then he spent how long in al-Medina? About 10 years, alayhi salatu wassalam. So Bayt al-Maqdis, through the ages, it has seen a lot. Through the ages, it has seen a lot of injustice. Al-Masjid al-AqSaa, it has seen many events that occurred. The jinn, for example, used to build for Sulaiman alayhi salam. They would dive into the seas. They would extract the precious stones, rubies and pearls from the sea and from other areas. And they would build giant structures for him. This was in Bayt al-Maqdis. Likewise, Prophet Isa عليه السلام, as he grew inside this area, Bayt al-Maqdis, in today's Palestine, he raised the dead. 4 times at least, he raised the dead. And like this, these areas saw so many miracles. And this was an area that was beloved to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If nothing else had been mentioned about it except that all of the prophets at one point in time were there, all of them. Even the ones that weren't originally from there. Approximately 124,000 prophets came to al-Masjid al-AqSaa. So if someone was to go there today and they stood in al-Masjid al-AqSaa, then it's very, very likely that they are standing in a place where a prophet stood. Which prophet? Allah knows best. Which prophet was standing in the front row? How many people were standing in the front row when they prayed behind Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam? If one of the prophets was here, we would kiss his hand, and we would kiss his hands and his feet amongst the men, because of how blessed a prophet is. What about 124,000 of them in one place? La ilaha illallah. Where else would they gather except in paradise? In one place. La ilaha illallah. Inshallah, in the next session, we'll mention a little more about the merits of al-Masjid al-AqSaa, and mention some of the events that the Prophet told us, alayhi salatu wassalam, that would be connected to and take place in al-Masjid al-AqSaa in the future. For now, let's take a short break. Let's say La ilaha illallah and as-salah ala al-nabi. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.